This video is sponsored by Wren. We had never taken a shower together. We had never been in the same bathroom together. "Don't flush," I'd said. "I want to look." What I saw brought out strains of compassion for him, for his body, for his life, which suddenly seemed so frail and vulnerable. "Our bodies won't have secrets now," I said, as I took my turn and sat down. He hopped into the bathtub and was just about to turn on the shower. "I want you to see mine," I said. He did more. He stepped out, kissed me on the mouth, and, pressing and massaging my tummy with the flat of his palm, watched the whole thing happen. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of this absolutely phenomenal film, mainly for the infamous peach scene. But if you haven't read the book which inspired the film, then you probably don't know of this little snippet that I just read. I was interested when I watched the film because it cut out and didn't feature this scene. What the scene is, well, a pooping scene. And what was intriguing to me was how the peach scene became infamous, a meme basically online, whereas the book features a scene far more, I would say, memeable and significant. What the scene describes is basically our two protagonists, Elio and Oliver, pooping together, as well as looking at each other's respective excrements, and Oliver ultimately assisting Elio in his bowel movement. And when I describe it, it of course sounds quite humorous and rather peculiar, if not revolting. But in what I just read, it was actually incredibly moving and beautiful, especially the description of compassion for him, for his body, for his life, which suddenly seemed so frail and vulnerable. And isn't that beautiful? I could not imagine a situation in my life where a significant other were to look into the toilet bowl, observe my feces, and feel such compassion and love for me. That is, I think, the ultimate expression of love. And it made me think, why? Why is it that this is seen not only as taboo, disgusting for evolutionary reasons, but also as something that we would never associate with the person that we love, especially in the most romantic moments when we are all so intent on presenting ourselves as the perfect embodiment of a superhuman. So yes, today in this unscripted video, we are going to be talking about poop and the human relationship to poop, and why I think it is so important that we destigmatize it and actually speak about it, not insofar as we do, which is primarily in the likes of poop jokes, but actually talk about it with each other and with our partners as an everyday life occurrence and thing, as simple and matter of fact as that which leads to it: eating, drinking, smoking a cigarette, drinking an espresso or coffee. However, just before we get into that, I need to give a huge thank you to today's video sponsor, Wren. The state of the climate is on everybody's mind, especially when it comes to feeling powerless and as if you have no meaningful impact on your everyday life. According to a survey by the American Psychological Association, more than 2/3 of Americans experience some form of climate anxiety. And a big reason for this is not knowing what to do. And that is where, uniquely, Wren comes in. So what is Wren and how does it work? Well, in a nutshell, Wren is a website where you can firstly calculate your carbon footprint and secondly, offset it by funding a variety of specially selected carbon reduction projects. Some of these projects include tree planting initiatives, mineral weathering, and rainforest protection. Wren's website will ask you a few simple questions about your lifestyle in order to determine your carbon footprint. And this is because it is not only unrealistic, but also impossible to reduce your carbon footprint to zero. And so Wren, quite literally, does it for you in ways that far exceed what you could do on your own 2 feet. For instance, this month, my money is going to an intriguing new project. Refrigerant destruction is a project that destroys harmful refrigerants which would otherwise be released into the atmosphere. Although HFCs keep things cold and fresh, they also have a downside. The most common HFC found in our domestic everyday refrigerators releases 3,400 times more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. Therefore, old refrigerators, how we replace our refrigerators, how we replace air conditioning units and dispose of them, has a huge environmental impact. Another refrigerant, CFC12, is 10,900 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. And this is the particular refrigerant that Wren is working not only to contain, but to also destroy through its refrigerant destruction project. And in the process, Wren has helped to fund and create green jobs in Honduras and France at refrigerant destruction sites. And with this project, like all of Wren's projects, I receive monthly updates with photographic evidence of where my money is going and what it is doing in the here and now. The thing with Wren is that it is all about transparency, and I can find information about this particular project and all projects through its website. Wren has also worked and continues to work with climate experts, as well as only partnering with projects that can prove their work is making a genuine difference. So, as a meaningful and positive start to the new year, why not offset your carbon footprint with Wren at wren.co? The first 100 people to sign up will get their first month completely free and covered by Wren. A happy new year indeed. Thank you so very much to Wren for continuing to support this channel and saving the planet in the process. And so, with that in mind, let's get back to the video.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It happened. It happened.
Now, I had to really think about literary references to defecation because it was quite difficult to note any that were as matter of fact as this. All references either feed into a taboo or into ideas of hierarchy and caste. And I think we can thank the Greeks for that. Thanks to the legacy of Aristotle, comedy is considered the lowest form of entertainment for the lowest and dimmest of human beings. And the Greeks were known for their toilet humor. Needing to pee or poop is often seen as a way to either ridicule a character, to add to the plot insofar as something going dramatically wrong, or to simply make a joke. I can remember watching a film called Along Came Polly, and when I googled it and looked at the plot summary on Wikipedia, it was very interesting. The film is about Reuben and Polly, played by Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston respectively. Reuben and Polly begin dating. She introduces him to activities he once wrote off as too risky. This includes eating at a Moroccan restaurant, which ends badly due to Reuben's irritable bowel syndrome. Luckily, Polly gives him a second chance, where they end up salsa dancing, and later enthusiastically having sex, with Reuben shouting 50 at the climax. Now, I found this fascinating, not just because an individual's irritable bowel syndrome was a point of comedy, but because it ultimately led to them breaking up in a way, or at least not dating anymore, and then her giving him a second chance. And I think this also just points to something else which I've noticed, that pooing is actually so socially taboo that individuals will actually run out of public toilets and their office toilets without flushing. And this has led to numerous articles which I found about why individuals within the modern office place are willing to, as I call it, splash and dash. Some of these articles have suggested that individuals are so ashamed that they actually publicly defecated that they just want to ignore that reality and just leave without even washing their hands or anything. Others have actually suggested that individuals just don't think. They don't want to think about it, and therefore they forget about the basic flushing of a toilet. And I think this suggests a very interesting relationship that we have to our own bodies and our own repulsion to it, if what these articles suggest, namely that people are so embarrassed and disgusted by any public display of their bodily functions, is true. Evolutionarily speaking, we associate feces with infection and disease, and this seems to have carried on through time, especially culturally. And this doesn't just have something to do with our modern societies, but also just with cultures globally. And this is to the extent that defecation and feces actually have symbolic meaning when it comes to social hierarchy. In the West, we see this even today. I was thinking when I went to London this weekend and I used the public restroom at King's Cross, platform 9 3/4. And it was interesting when I went into the bathroom because I have been thinking about this a little bit on and off, but I just thought about this because I realized when I was at King's Cross that I had a bowel movement, and I thought to myself, should I hold it or should I just go? And I went. I'm going to be, oh my gosh. I'm going to be open in this video because, what's the point in saying that we need to destigmatize these things when I can't even articulate it myself? So here we go. All guns blazing. I'm going to be the butt of somebody's joke for sure. But I went to the bathroom, did my business, everything was fine, everything was sound, washed my hands, was doing a bit of touch-up with a bit of powdering my nose, as they call it, and somebody who cleans the bathroom came in, housekeeping came into the bathroom, and it just made me think that even in modern Britain, individuals who clean toilets, who clean our bathrooms, are considered, at least socially and socioeconomically speaking, to be the lowest insofar as we consider the value of their work. Garbage collectors, housekeepers, the idea of cleaning up human waste and dirt. And I think what is interesting in this is that there is a distinction between, on the one hand, legally protecting individuals who do such work, but that isn't aligned as readily and as consistently to our cultural perceptions of those individuals and their work. The law gives dignity to their work and to the people doing that work, but culturally we are still very behind. And I think more so than modern Britain, for instance, modern India is also a good example when it comes to so-called manual scavengers. The Dalit caste overwhelmingly make up India's manual scavengers, and they are basically responsible for the removal by hand of human waste from homes, from public facilities, from the streets, as well as the cleaning of sewers and septic tanks. And this persists to this day in some parts of India, even though the practice has been legally outlawed. And what is most worrying about this is that not only does it represent what I said, that distinction between the law and culture and the strength, the personal and just societal strength of cultural norms and expectations, but also how this can actually be life-threatening work. Manual scavengers are at risk of death from asphyxiation due to poisonous gases and are often exposed to diseases such as cholera, hepatitis, meningitis, jaundice, skin disorders, and even cardiovascular diseases. They often lack access to proper safety gear and equipment. And this is actually reinforced by a caste-based practice, reinforced by a very lengthy caste history in India. And so I found this very heartbreaking to read, especially about the annual deaths which continue to this day. And I think this relates indirectly to the health implications of this taboo surrounding poo.
I'm gonna take a shit.
In the UK, the second biggest cancer killer is bowel cancer. However, alongside this, I was intrigued to read the following 3 facts. 1 in 4 adults are too embarrassed to seek medical help or assistance for a gut or bowel issue. 45% of adults cannot identify a healthy stool sample, that is, looking at the consistency of the stool, identifying color changes over time or healthy color, identifying whether it is floating or not, the density of a stool, etc. And most surprising to me was that 1 in 4 adults in the UK have not even looked at their stools. That is, when they go to the toilet and flush, they don't look at their stool. And gut problems, digestive problems are very common in human beings. And the fact that we can't even seek medical help due to embarrassment or shame is very sad. And this really surprised me because this isn't something that I think about a lot. Just because I'm young, I don't have many health issues. For instance, I'm really oversharing in this one, aren't I? I've only ever been constipated once as a child, and that lasted for 7 days. And I still remember to this day the feeling of finally not being constipated and the absolute joy, but also the feeling that I had ripped my entire body apart in order to get the stool out. And I think we often think about these things just in personal, typical ways. But when it actually comes to considering this, especially with age, and thus inevitably a confrontation with illness and disease, I think it's important to actually look into these things, not as matter of fact shame or embarrassment, but to look at these things as potentially being warning signs. Because I think a lot of this feeds into this taboo, and also a lot of my own mental management of my own digestive system has very much to do with taboos, such as making sure that I've gone to the toilet before I go out, never going to the toilet whilst I was at school or in sixth form, feeling absolutely gutted that I couldn't afford to have an ensuite bedroom at university and having to share the toilets with others. But also on the plus side, never having my own bathroom and therefore always having to share with other people, and thus accepting the fact of my being. And this leads into the real meat and juice of this video. Men versus women when it comes to pooping and farting, especially in intimate relationships.
Move, bitch!
If you haven't read Jonathan Swift's The Ladies' Dressing Room, I highly recommend. This satirical poem is fascinating, not just because it will make you laugh until your stomach hurts, but because it really speaks to something which I believe we still deal with to this very day when it comes to our perceptions of women and their beauty and beauty routine and perfection, but also when it comes to men and their expectations of women and fulfilling that ideal of being superhuman. And I think increasingly as beauty standards, which were exclusively the domain and concern of women and how they looked, are now being projected onto men and are really resulting in quite an identity crisis with men and their looks. These same expectations of perfection and being a superhuman when it comes to the human digestive system are going to apply to men. When I asked Google a question about pooping for this video, I was gobsmacked, to say the least, when it came to what other people had asked. Because people also asked, why do girls go to the bathroom together? Can girls poop and pee at the same time? Do girls poop? Yes or no? Do girls poop different than guys? How often do girls poop? And I think Swift's poem answers this question and speaks to these questions quite perfectly. The poem is about Strephon, who sneaks into the dressing room of his beloved, Celia, whilst nobody is around, and rather than having his convictions of her perfection confirmed, he is confronted by a ghastly revelation and a realization which he cannot handle. Celia shits.
Disgusting!
And with that, Celia and all women actually have taken a massive shit on the painted illusion that women are beyond the bodily functions of the human body with all its filth and disgust. The satire basically suggests that women try vainly to trick men into buying into this ideal, and in that ultimately try to trick themselves into this ideal and illusion. And just as importantly, men themselves can't confront the reality, that this is an illusion, that the illusion isn't real. The section of the poem which I enjoy the most is when Strephon discovers Celia's chamber pot. To stinking smoke it turns the flame, poisoning the flesh from whence it came, and up exhales a greasy stench, for which you curse the careless wench. So things, which must not be expressed, when plumped into the reeking chest, send up an excremental smell, to taint the parts from whence they fell. The petticoats and gown perfume, which waft a stink round every room. Thus finishing his grand survey, disgusted Strephon stole away, repeating in his amorous fits, "Oh, Celia, Celia, Celia shits." But vengeance, goddess never sleeping, soon punished Strephon for his peeping. His foul imagination links each dame he sees with all her stinks, and if unsavoury odours fly, conceives a lady standing by. All woman his description fits, and both ideas jump like wits, but vicious fancy coupled fast, and still appears in contrast. And if this is how a man responds to the revelation that his beloved shits, it is no wonder that even to this day we come across newspaper headings such as these. Woman ends up in wheelchair after holding in farts around her boyfriend. Woman ended up in surgery after refusing to fart in front of her boyfriend. Brazilian singer Posa was legit hospitalized after not farting in front of her boyfriend. 90 Day Fiancé star retires from selling farts after heart attack scare. In a Cosmopolitan article, they asked their mainly woman viewers whether they would fart in front of their significant other. And these were the interesting results. The article is interestingly titled, "This is apparently the right time to start farting in front of your boyfriend," as if there's a time when you can appropriately start farting in front of your boyfriend. 29% said 2 to 6 months, 25.2% said 6 to 12 months, 22.4% said that they always leave the room no matter what, and 9.3% said that they won't fart for a full year into the relationship. And this is interesting because trapped farts is actually a medical condition, one which the Brazilian singer-songwriter Posa suffered from. Long story short, the 27-year-old singer was too shy to fart in front of her significant other. This led to her waking up one night with severe stomach pains. She, like many in this day and age, went to TikTok to seek out medical advice. TikTok told her that there was no issue and that it wasn't a problem. The pain got more severe. She went to hospital, could hardly walk, and was diagnosed with trapped farts. On a now deleted Instagram post, she said the following to her followers: "Girls, don't be ashamed to fart in front of your guy, because what's really embarrassing is not letting your guy sleep because you're in discomfort, going to hospital with your guy, and the diagnosis being trapped farts." The influencer VTube ended up at a festival in Portugal with her boyfriend. She was too ashamed to fart or go to the bathroom in front of him, and at the airport when they were leaving, she was overcome by severe stomach pain and was actually put in a wheelchair for a period of time. After being attended to, it was established that she had trapped farts. And a few months ago, I believe, the 90 Day Fiancé star Stephanie Matto went viral because she began selling her farts in a jar to followers. She reportedly made more than $50,000 a week by selling her farts in a jar. However, after she experienced gas pains so painful that she thought she was having a heart attack, she had to retire. Matto was rushed to hospital with chest pains she feared were symptoms of a heart attack. After undergoing a battery of tests, including blood work and an EKG, Matto was told that her pain was the result of her steady diet of gas-inducing beans and eggs. The self-proclaimed farttrepreneur had squeezed out up to 50 jars worth of farts a week to keep up with demand, and even added protein shakes to her diet to make them more pungent. And I think this does really speak to something, based just on my purely anecdotal experience. There is a lot of shame in admitting as a woman that you are not perfect. And even with the example of Stephanie Matto, there is this kind of fetishization or fetishization around pooping, around farting, around our bodily functions.
Now, why do people buy my farts in a jar? I honestly think it's because I have a really good personality. And also because I'm hot.
I can imagine that porn has just fed into this, sadly, and that with that there is kind of a disappointment, I guess, or a sense of letting down this ideal of womanhood when you do actually go to the bathroom in front of your significant other, when you do actually fart and it is deemed embarrassing by you or whoever is there. And we can most definitely see that in films. I watched a few weeks ago Bones and All, and I was intrigued at the beginning in the opening sequence that the protagonist went to the bathroom and she was actually shown going to the bathroom, and I thought, oh my goodness, is this the first time that I'm actually going to see a woman taking a dump on screen and it being deemed just a matter-of-fact everyday occurrence, just adding to the ambiance of an indie film? No, she just peed. But it just made me think that I have never, in fact, stumbled upon the representation of a woman farting or relieving herself in any way aside from peeing in a film that is presented in a nonchalant, everyday occurrence sort of way. It's either fetishized or associated with horror in the likes of the Human Centipede, or is really just non-existent. Women don't go to the toilet. Women don't have bodily functions like anybody else. Their stomachs don't make weird, peculiar noises. And I wouldn't say that the opposite is the case for men. I think that there is just more of an openness to men being humans or being gross or what have you. With women, we are very much still steeped in the idea that we are like sex dolls. We may have an anus, but that is purely for something to go in, not for anything natural to come out. Oh my gosh, that sounded far better in my head. But anyway, I thought that that was just an interesting little discussion to have, because I know that this is taboo, that this is uncomfortable, that it is peculiar, that we try to ease the tension of such things through laughter, that women don't fart in public, that some of us who do fart in public do so only because we know that it doesn't stink, that it doesn't make a sound, and that we therefore keep up this illusion that we do not have anything going on down there. But just reading into this, I realized that there are some severe health implications to this illusion, and that we are not helping ourselves by just playing into it consistently, to the detriment of our health, our well-being, and also just our own mental sanity when it comes to really connecting with our bodies, and also being able to appreciate the human condition in its entirety. Because I think the description of Ilio and Oliver was really beautiful and moving, even though it was about something that is deemed absolutely revolting. I think these nonchalant depictions of defecation are important. Well, I hope you got something out of this video. Thank you so very much for watching this video. Thank you so much, as always, to my very generous patrons. You are helping to get me on the way to no longer having a shared toilet, but having my own. And I am very sorry, but I am not going to start selling my farts in a jar, even though the amount of money that I could earn from it is very enticing. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching this very peculiar video, as I've already said. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one.